What's up again, everybody? Here we have the Superman and Wonder Woman starter set. I went out and bought this today. I think it came out today or yesterday. I saw some people get it yesterday. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about, like all the spoilers and all that, because the spoilers have been out for about 3 weeks now. But I like this a lot, so let's dig into it and take a look at some of the cards if you haven't seen them already. Important thing to note here, this rule book is super important because it does indicate that there is now a first turn rule change. So if you want to learn more about the rule change, that is put one of your dice, if you're going first, put one of your dice in the transition zone or out of play until the end of your first turn, at which point it goes to the used. That is now detailed in this rule book. This is the first rule book that actually details that. So what's inside of this thing? If you've never opened one of these starter sets before, if you're just new to the game, inside of this you're getting your cards. You're getting 2 dice for each of your characters. There are 3 characters, or 3 different variants of each character. You're getting 2 bags. These bags are really nice. They used to just be kind of blank. I really like that they're doing these prints now. They do feel just like a thick paper, but they're very cool prints. So I like that they're including these details now. I think it makes it look a lot nicer. You also get, in this little pack, you get these little color indicator cards. I actually don't use these, but, they're there for a reason. So as for what you're getting in this set, you're getting 16 of these sidekick dice so that you and a friend can play the game. You're getting 4 different colors of these basic action dice. I like the colors that they're going with now. They used to have different colors that were a little less popping and bright. I like these bright colors. And you're getting 2 dice, as I said, for each character. Now that that's out of the way, let's jump into the cards in this set. Okay, let's first take a look at this card they're now including. This didn't used to exist, but now it does, which I like these. This tells you basically what's all in the set, what you can expect. So the affiliations in this set are the Superman, Team Superman affiliation, Justice League, and villains. It also does kind of explain some things here, but that's not really that important. That does talk about there the first turn rule change there too. That's interesting. So let's take a look at the cards. So as I said, we've got 3 variants for each character. So looking at Artemis first, this is Artemis Shimtar, 5-cost Bolt character, 024144166 side, good stats for a 5, about average actually, but the fielding cost is less than normal for 5s. They're starting to put these 1 fielding cost top sides on these 5-cost cards in this and in that Guardian set that's upcoming. I like that a lot personally. I think that's where they need to be statted so that we are encouraged to run 5 drops. Anyway, when fielded, prevent all damage dealt to your Artemis character dice until the end of the turn. Really quickly, I don't think this is worth it because it's only affecting itself, and when you're paying for something that's 5 or more, I think it needs to do more than just protect itself the moment it hits that 1 turn. You can attack with it for 1 turn, and then what? I mean, it doesn't protect itself if it stays in the field. So you can get 1 free KO with it, but then your opponent's re-rolling that die most likely, or it just cycles and goes back into your bag. So I don't like this one. I don't like this card very much. That's just me personally, though. Here we have Amazon of, I'm not going to try saying that. I will try it. Bana Migdal. That looks right. Also 5-cost Bolt character, and this one says, when fielded, prevent all damage dealt to sidekick dice you control. Nice thing about this is it does protect your allies as well, obviously, because sidekicks or allies or sidekicks in the field. I think this one does have some potential. It's a little expensive to put onto a flying sidekick team, especially if you're trying to run allies within that flying sidekick team. Using it for protecting, and this is just a one fielded effect as well. So the turn that she comes in, you're paying 1 for her, and then you protect your dice that turn. That turn, it's great. If this were a while active effect, I would say this is a great card, or a good card. Right now, I think this is better than the first one we talked about, this first Artemis, but I think this one's still a little bit weak for the purchase cost. The last Artemis, we have Renouncing Olympus, and this one I think is actually kind of cool. When she's active, so all the time, all sidekicks must attack if able. So you're really, this is a lot of sidekick and ally hate. Your opponents can't build boards and can't chump block your attackers because you're keeping them from doing so with this card in the field. Now on the flip side, you can't do those same things, so obviously this does not go on a sidekick team unless you're okay with pushing every single turn. Overall, though, I think this one does have some techie options. Artemis, just not really a very strong card within this little set. But you're not buying this set for Artemis. Let's be honest, you're not buying it for Artemis. So let's move on to some other more interesting characters. Like Cheetah, for example. This is Feline Fury. I actually like this card. The stat line, 4-cost mask, villain character, 1/4/2, 1/4/4, 1/5/5. A 1/5/5 on a 4-drop is pretty good. That's above average. And then you look at her ability, which says she gets +1/+1 for each opposing non-sidekick, non-villain character die in the field zone. Now that's a lot of text, and it's a lot of stipulations, but when you look at it, when you break it down, if your opponent has, like 2 sidekicks and a Rip Hunter in the field, she's getting +1/+1. So looking at her stat line then, she's a 5/3, a 5/5, and a 6/6, and you're paying 1 to put her out on the field for a 4, that's good. If they have 2 characters that are non-villains, then you're looking at a 7/7 on its top side, and you're paying 4 for that. And it's got a villain affiliation, which is a pretty good affiliation right now if you're keeping up with affiliations and how their power levels are. This is a really good card. Goddess of the Hunt. When fielded, KO target opposing sidekick. If you do, draw die from your bag and prep it. Side note, I like that they're saying prep it instead of put it into the prep area. It just kind of makes it feel more like a keyword. I like that personally. So when fielded, she's going to KO one of your opposing sidekicks or one of your opponent's sidekicks. If they have a sidekick, this is a really decent card because it's ramp, right? If they don't have a sidekick, then it's a blank text card, right? So how do you weigh that? Well, you look at the stats and you go, you're getting a 5/5. On average, you're getting a 4-attack card, a 4-attack character for 4. It's kind of depowered that way. So not as good, but I think this does have some utility because your opponent is going to have a sidekick more likely than not, right? So I think this has some potential. Looking at the last Cheetah, this is Some Manner of Monster. While she is active, when you field a non-Cheetah villain character die, draw a die from your bag and prep it. Again, great card for a villain team. You're putting this onto a villain team, and then you are, just kind of like leaving her out there, fielding all your villain characters. Put her on even like just a cheap villain team, right? And you're prepping her. She's just generating dice for you. I think this has some really, really strong features to it. Highly recommend this one, but I think overall, I'll always take the stats, right? So I'll always go Feline Fury just because she can be just crazy, right? Your opponent's building a board, got 3 non-sidekick, non-villain characters. You're getting a 7/7 or an 8/8. That's insane. Awkward pause over. Giganta. Giganta is an interesting character in this set. 5-cost fist character, villain affiliation. She's got that very same stat line, very similar stat line to her previous incarnation. An 0/22, 1/5/5, 1/6/6, so a 1/6/6 for 5. Comparing that to the past stat line of a 5/5 for 4, it's about on par, right? Whenever you or your character dice you control are damaged, spin her up 1 level. So obviously her whole play around is, because she's just a giant person, is spinning up and down. This one is okay, right? It's about normal. You're looking for her to be on her 6/6 side to get her value. If she's on her 2/2 side, this gives you a way to do so. Not great, not bad, just kind of mediocre. Right, for 5, you probably don't run her very often. She could go on a villain team, but why? There's so many other options, and power creep is real in this game in the sense that, you look at her, you look at what she does, and you go, well, I could just run, like a 4-drop. I could just run this Cheetah. What does this do for me? Not much, because she's basically just beholden to what stats she has and the ability to spin up. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world because her stat line is pretty good, but it could be better. Speaking of better, this one's okay. This is Villainy Incorporated, and when she is fielded, spin all opposing character dice down 1 level. This actually could be really interesting based on how the X-Men First Class set plays out, because that has a lot of spin up and down features. In fact, this whole character of Giganta could be a lot better when that set releases, or when we get some spoilers for that, just because it does play around with spinning up and down your dice. That being said, I don't know if it's a good thing to spin up or down your dice in that set. So this is one to watch out for in the future. As of right now, this is actually not too bad, because you are sort of spinning your opponent's character dice down. So if they've got a high attack character, then you can get that on some of its lower levels. It remains to be seen if that's super useful in this current metagame, because there's not a lot of, like just going for stats. It's really a lot of direct damage is what's going on currently. So as of right now, this doesn't have a lot of play, but I would look forward to what it could be in the future. Now we get to the good one. This is Giganta Standing Tall, and while she is active, when a character dice spins up, each of your Giganta dice gain +1/+1, right? Okay, so that's pretty good. 5 cost still, so you're not getting a ton of her out to use this ability on like 3 Giganta dice, right? And you're only getting 2 in the set, so if you wanted 3 of those, you'd have to buy 2 of these and drop $40. I would say it's probably not worth dropping $40, but there is like 1 or 2 characters in this set where you could actually argue that it might be, so we'll talk about it when we get to those. Her global is great, though. Look at her global. It's pay a fist, spin target character die up 1 level. So she comes with a way of using her ability, so you're not beholden or you're not required to build a way to do that in. She just straight up gives you a way to spin a character die up. So basically, looking at her stats, she is a 3/3, a 6/6, or a 7/7 for 5. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And this can apply to your other character dice. So you could be sitting here with a Cheetah that could spin up to a 5/5 side, and she goes buffs to a 6/6 or a 7/7. Pretty good. All right, next up is Jimmy Olsen, and this is probably one of my favorite cards in the set. This is Jimmy Olsen's Signal Watch. He's a 2-cost fist character with a Superman affiliation. Stats don't really matter. He's an 0/1/2, 0/1/3, 1/2/3. It's nice that his ability is a wall-active ability, and he does have at least a 2 or a 3 defensive side on all of his sides. While Jimmy Olsen is active, your Superman and Supergirl character dice cost 2 less to purchase to a minimum of 1 and may be fielded for free. That is an awesome, awesome, awesome ability, because the Superman and Supergirl characters and dice from previous sets have honestly been really good, but totally unplayable because they are so expensive to both purchase and to field, right? There are very few that you could do stuff with consistently, because it's just hard to get multiple of them out, right? You got to pay, 14 energy or 12 energy if you're a 6-cost Superman or Supergirl, excuse me. So it's really hard to do so. This card makes a Superman team possible, right? So you can throw this down and then play a Superman or buy a Superman for like 4 or 5, and that's great, right? And then you never have to pay to field them as long as you're keeping this in the field. Super worth it. This is a turn 1 buy, and then you prep it as you buy it with chalkboard, and then you play it, and then you buy a Superman on turn 2. Boom. This is a great card. One of the reasons you should buy this set. Jimmy Olsen, Superman's pal, another 2-cost fist version of Jimmy Olsen. When he is KO'd, you may prep a Superman or Supergirl character die in your used pile. This one still has some utility. You buy a Superman or a Supergirl somehow with your 6 or 7 energy, and then you get to immediately, if you can KO him, you can move it into your prep area, so you don't have to pay that shield energy. I would much prefer the discount than I would a when KO'd ability that preps something rather than bringing it out. I mean, it's just so hard to get a Superman or a Supergirl that if you're getting one, it just feels very convoluted, or like a lot of moving parts to then KO Jimmy Olsen after you've paid 6 or 7 energy, buy said thing. It just feels like a lot of moving parts. I would prefer, as I said, the Signal Watch variant. Jimmy Olsen, seeing is believing, yet another 2-cost. And his ability text says, while Superman or Supergirl is active, globals activated by opponents cannot target Jimmy Olsen and prevent all damage those abilities deal to Jimmy Olsen. I don't see a lot of utility in this, just in the sense that you're not really focused on Jimmy Olsen, right? I mean, he's not doing a ton for you, really, as him, right? This one's discounting Superman. This one's KO. If he gets KO'd, you're moving Superman. This one's protecting himself. Why are you protecting yourself? I mean, your stat line, not great, right? All right, next up we have Steve Trevor. He's a 2-cost bolt character. He's got an 021, 031, 141 stat line and blank text. So for 2, you're getting a 2-attack, 3-attack, or 4-attack guy who gets KO'd by a sidekick. Doesn't have an affiliation. Honestly, that's actually not that bad because bolt characters are in high demand, and a 2-cost version of a bolt character, even if they don't have text, is not terribly bad, right? So you can get a ton of these guys out, and you're actually doing okay for yourself. That's not bad. I mean, you get 4 of them, you put them all out on their top side, you have max of 16 damage that you're representing. I've seen worse, right? Steve Trevor, the man from Argus. This is a 3-cost bolt character, and he says, while Wonder Woman is active, prevent all damage dealt to Steve Trevor. So this is actually a pretty good one in the sense that his defensive stat line, he no longer can be KO'd by anything, which is nice, unless it's a character ability that doesn't deal damage, right? That just says KO said character. The downside here is that now you have to pay 3 for him. So before you were paying 6 energy to have 16 attack stat, right? Total 16 attack stats on the top side. Now you're paying 9 energy for that same thing. Where's the drop off? I personally think it's right there, right? Like 2.5. So crossing over into the 3 range is starting to make this a little less viable. But the fact that he can just stay out in the field, keep attacking, not get KO'd, as long as you have Wonder Woman, makes him pretty good still. So I like both of these cards so far. Third one, when Steve Trevor is KO'd, you may immediately purchase a Wonder Woman die for up to 3 less, minimum of 1, and prep it. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it already, Wonder Woman is in this set, and also spoiler alert, she cost 4, 4, and 5, which means with this, if you KO him, which is pretty easy to do, like throw on, Magic Missile or Unstable Canister, pay a bolt, and KO him. You can then immediately purchase Wonder Woman for 1, 1, or 2, and then prep it. And it doesn't actually have to be in your main step. It could be right after you attack with him. It could be right after you block with him. You could just have it a Wonder Woman right then, which is pretty good. Now you do have to have the mask for the purchase of it, but that's not terribly hard to do. I like this one a lot. It does allow you to just get some decent discounts on your Wonder Woman dice, and that's something you want because you want Wonder Woman because she's really good in this set. All 3 of Steve Trevor's I like. Supergirl. Here we go. Supergirl. 6-cost shield character, super affiliation, obviously. Same stat line as previous incarnations. Her ability says that while Supergirl is active, prevent all damage dealt by villain character dice, yours or your opponent's, to Supergirl character dice you control. So I'd say with this card, not a ton of utility in the sense that you're not really worried about damage dealt by villain character dice for this stat line, right? It's not going to do much. I mean, giant villains, sure. But again, you're not really too worried about this. This, for a 6-drop, it doesn't affect the board enough. So what are you paying for? You're paying 6 for either a 4/6, a 6/7, or a 7/8, and it's protected from villain damage. Right? It doesn't do enough to warrant purchasing this card when there are cards that cost less that do more, right? Hence the idea of power creep in this game, right? When you have 8 slots to fill, how does this fit into your strategy overall? Not really, doesn't really. Let's move on. Supergirl, I have all your powers. When Supergirl deals combat damage to your opponent, you may draw 2 dice from your bag and prep them. This is a good card, right? This is a decent card. So you're going to attack with her. You're going to apply some sort of an overcrush to her, and then every time she deals that massive attack damage on these top 2 sides, you're just prepping dice. I think this is a great card, actually. As long as you get the overcrush onto her, then she's prepping dice. If you're just pushing with her, your opponent really can't let them go through either. That's the crazy thing. So they are blocking. So she's either doing one of 2 things, or one of 3 things, right? She's got overcrush, so she's dealing damage, staying on the field, and drawing you dice, right? Prepping your dice, right? She's dealing them direct damage and either hitting them for 4, 6, or 7. So that's great. Why not take that, right? Or she's destroying some sort of a blocker scenario, and they're going to be forced to reroll that die next turn. And sometimes that's bad for you, but they're not guaranteed to reroll that die, right? They're not guaranteed for it to come back. So all real options are pretty good here. When fielded, if your opponent's life total is greater than yours, gain 3 life. This is the third copy. This one is interesting in the sense that you can kind of play that mini game of I have less life, gain 3. Okay, now we're back. Right, but she's 7, and it's a when fielded ability, and you've got to pay 2 to get her out. So unless you're running that Jimmy Olsen that allows you to field her for free, which I would recommend because obviously you don't want to have to pay 2 every time. Unless you're doing that, then this is a really hard ability to use turn after turn after turn, right? Plus, it's just not triggering turn after turn after turn because if you have her, you're more likely ahead on life than your opponent is. So not as much utility. I really like this this one that I just set down, the I have all your powers variant, the most out of all these Supergirls. Next up, we've got the Superman in this set, all 3 of his versions. 6-cost shield character with the Justice League affiliation. He is not affiliated with himself. Same exact stat line as Supergirl, very interesting. While he is active, prevent all damage dealt by villain character dice to Superman character dice you control. That looks extremely similar, almost exactly similar. Exactly similar to the other Supergirl card. I didn't like this card. I don't really like this card. I mean, it's the same stats too, right? So what does this 6-drop do to you? Or do for you? Not much, right? Doesn't do much for you. Next up, this one's an interesting one. Superman gets +1/+1 for each different energy type you have in your reserve pool. So, what that looks like. If you're looking at a mask, a bolt, and a fist, he's getting +3/+3. So you're looking at on his top side, a 10/11. That's really good. For 6, that's really good. Okay, so then apply Overcrush. Right now, if you're not looking, even just a 1, that's the worst case scenario, right? Or I guess 0 is technically, because then it's a blank text card. It doesn't do anything. 1 energy. That's not a question mark. 1 energy. You're looking at a 5/7, a 7/8, and an 8/9 for 6. Yeah, that's pretty good. Stats are good, but again, no Overcrush means you're not guaranteed to deal that damage, but you are guaranteed to have this huge body in the field. And the 7-cost Superman, when fielded, if your opponent's life total is greater than yours, Superman deals 3 damage to your opponent. Again, this is not going to trigger very often, especially because the moment you play one, your opponent's taking 3 damage, and then you're probably ahead, and then you've got this huge minion on the board. I say minion. I played Hearthstone recently. You got this huge character on the board, and you're ahead. You're generally ahead. So your opponent's not going to be dealing much damage to you unless they have a direct damage strategy, and you're not going to be fielding a lot more of these, so you can't just expect to continue to pound that away. So it doesn't do a lot for you, especially not for 7. So I don't recommend this one. If you are going to run one of these Superman, then I recommend the Superman, this one right here, Living in a World of Cardboard, which is a really cool subtitle. If you are going to run a Superman at all, then I would recommend running one from the World's Finest set instead. Do that. Oh, here we go. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a great card. All 3 of her cards, I think, are pretty good. This is Ambassador of Peace, 4-cost mask character, Justice League affiliation. 033-135-257 stat line. While she is active, players cannot use the global abilities on their character cards on their team. Right, so if it's not a character card, you can use it. And if it's not on your team, you can use it. So if it's your opponent and they're bringing these cards, if it's their card, then you can use it. But if it's your character card, and then you can't use it, right? So like Parallax, can't use Parallax. You can't use any of the spin down one of your sidekicks onto an energy side, like the Cyborg Globals. You can't use any of those, right? But you can use Chalkboard Global. You can use the Global on the ring from the second D&D set. So this is an interesting kind of build-around card in the sense that you build your team to not be affected by this, and your opponent just gets all the bad, right? Pretty cool. Wonder Woman, Reflections. Uh-oh, I stole a Wonder Woman. This is supposed to be what? Where is she? Here she is. Wonder Woman, Reflections, the good Wonder Woman, or the best Wonder Woman. 5 cost, so a little bit out of reach. Can't buy her turn 1. While she is active, when fielded and when attacks abilities are ignored. This card is great, right? So this protects you from doing, or protects you from a lot of stuff, right? There's just so many when attacks, when fielded abilities in this game that are just really, 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 really good. And this stops all of them. So the only way to deal with this is to get that Shriek from Maximum Carnage and then play it before she comes out, because it's a one fielded effect. So this card will see a ton of play. You should buy this set for this card. There are a few other cards in this set that are worth it, but this is an amazing, amazing card. 100% you should buy this set for this card at least. Child of Clay. This is the one I skipped on accident. Oops. 4-cost version. While she is active, global abilities activated by your opponent cannot target character dice you control. Very, very cool as well. This protects your character dice from being pinged out by unstable canister, or really just any other thing that your opponent could do to mess with your character dice. They can no longer do it. So I like this card a lot as well. All three of these, right? I just buy this set if for nothing else, and these actions are really good too. If for nothing else, buy it for one of them.